Paean with Egregori by Valentin Scavr, translated by I.S.M. We grahanplin, we deber, winchum, wiammer, and being devils is of the choosing. Darkness lasts beyond the decaying. Incarnation can be confusing. There is a special time of coming out in the denials of the evening. Water and blood have opened the gates, and so has the mortifying. Under the difficulties of life arises a morning. The fire and edges have gained the following. Evil can seem the way to what is most fulfilling. To free yourself is what they are suggesting. Shadows are realized, and there is an opening. We gra hunplim wideber winchum wiammer. Some have a negative starting. From that point, they are leading. They don't repent of their ferocity. Their thinking is of their immortality. Opening is in the blood, and those choosing to mutiny. The ash tree of the masters has had miscarriages of fear with the goat demons to become kingly. We kra hanplim wideber winchum wiammer. At God again, the effect. The assaulters of their commands, the greasy plague, they are outside incarnating. They are ascending. They bear the sign that was imposing. From the incarnated is their empowering. The results to come were upon the emptying. Descent was inevitable by the heavenly guarding. The devil went to his place in the chaos and dark becoming. From the highest to the lowest followed the naming. Before the humanity, there was a predicting. Humanity is an eighth for an aiming. By its consciousness and action, the heavens and hells were opening. There was a sight privy to the transgressing. Before our birth, our uniqueness was preparing. Humanity became obsessed with groups in its darkening. Humanity finds a sense of liberty in multiplying. In the 40 created worlds, the hidden beings are presencing. Distinctly with forms and terms they are empowering. Truly, the mere perception of flesh is limiting. Are the light beings and those of God really worth invoking? Their hierarchy denies its independence to the point of automatically obeying. Upon the bodies of clay beings was the influence stemming from one that is corrupting. The forbidden bringer saw itself as more of guarding. Being and non-being was known to the Father, bearing eternal cursing. Serpents of the other side were brought with a crackling. Mortality is futile, so it shares with them in despairing. The heavenly hosts kept their realm as not known by a ceiling. They made this realm more pleasing and formed a link of them as themselves extending. Mahalal, bringing in another substance of God, marked an age of humans more completely submitting. The angels of the levels were more universally known in the supernatural scene. 21 rays of 10 degrees and 12 followers each began reflecting. We kra hanplin widaber winchum wiamer, and calling an event of the usurpers of the placing Azazel and his crew operates as revealers. The satire of evil, the goat demon of pressure. The breasts are an equaling power of the creatures of God that are abundantly yoked as the beastly of God. They were losing the position from the position they had formerly. His name rises with the blood of weapons in the face of lost power. That which was great difficulty was of what they were, the messengers. The light of the dawn brings the light, but there already was a darkener. Before they fell with might, the heptarchy was a predecessor. The fight began, and these fire beings turned to the humans of the clay beings as changers. A prudent way gave way to violators. With their knowledge and understanding, they got help from a developer. They were discriminating between flesh and spirit. Then came the role of the realm of smokeless fire. Humanity found its uniqueness in its consciousness and desires. The light beings kept reestablishing their role as worldly overseers against Shaul. Drawn out. Humanity forms a Shaul depression as it takes itself as a universal center. The spiritual is personified as they tempt the very order. We came here through a process that can be considered mental. The chosen creatures were imbibed with their own sense of truth that was adversarial. We kra hanplim Weedaber, Weenchum, Weamer, and calling in the event. Are the usurpers? The event. Are the usurpers? Hands, placing flag. The materially born, they are initially outsiders. The light beings worked on the demonic as transformers. Each side sought out mystics and prophetic messengers. On the outside, humans were far more like the other clay being creatures. Shemiyat Azza, famous visionary. Azza, mighty Shu, and Azazel, powerful intellect of God, decided their rights and figured out the ability of each other. Then they turned to who was ready of humanity. To incarnation of the side of the light beings are the fire beings, is the choice of humanity. Burning inspiration comes from the rejecting and knowing why. We kra hanplim Weedaber, Weenchum, Weamer, and calling in the event of the usurpers have invaded the lands, placing the purpose and pushing bitterness. Shema all. Obedient of God. No more. They have inverted the celestial in their infernal reflection. 10-faced, become the infernal companions. They have more names than the glass ceiling above where they began. It was not instantly, but there was a following to be fallen angels, leading away from I.S.M. They manifested as only devils. Their renown is evil in a desolate place, where the aroma of time is a breath of perversity, of the perception of their we ra unclean, we deber, weenchum, weammer. This world witnessed great upheaval before we were even here. Those that were made it as theirs back then witnessed the response of the animals. Ra han plin we deber ween chim weammer. Led the transgression with the shock of thunder. As the twilight fades or returns, they recognize and gather. They second guessed their oath and became covenant breakers. Aryan watchers established distortion island under the first 18 dozen, led by Azazel. They removed God over Shemyetzah, the name that brings in internal experiences. Berkyal, blessed of God. Azradal, time to subdue of God. Or Ashral, kind of God. Or Zikr all, remembrance of God. La Pukton, Kumyal, and Amzer. Since the night starting that year's darkest quarter, Samhain starts about a week in November. Paean brings a tumultuous company, chaos, waters. Her moon, and all spots where Hanplim, pollen, came down are for satanic pilgrimage. Dynamism found its truth in the alteration by the presencing with more than the mystic. The original celebrities are stars weaved like threads to these places with dominion. The bodies were stacked from near and far as the humans form their will's incarnation. Open the gates of flesh for the soul, for here is the place to work with contradictions. Abysmal vistas opened up with the increasing damnation. Azoth was known in the taboos that were broken without contrition. We ra hun clean, we deber ween chum we ammer. Harmony. Combine strength with the tower, according to Revelations 13. Rather than 10,000 praises, they heap up 10,000 vexations, taking themselves as Hashemim. They made their own observation and formed their own protection. The quintessence and the elements became as theirs. The union of attributes makes completely their ability in secret. Are you ready to be like them and sign the pact? And the bareness of it raises or breaks with the order that shakes without the binding of sleep, as the rejected eagle of the prideful and bitter order. Ra, hun clean, weed burr, ween chum, weammer. I'm calling in the event. Freedom is in the future. Become a Lucifer. The past is a touch point forever. The seven mothers became the subject of the hunters. We ra hun clean, we deber ween chum weammer. I'm calling an event. They shone forth from Babylon to the so-called uncivilized nations. Predators increased the depression. Peace was not seen as the liberation. The place was open with unspoken conditions. Following in the way made clay beings chosen. Effort and impact may need setting aside of emotions. The fire beings were now forever with the material, and some humans made gods of the demons. Changes came upon them as the fire beings went through the souls of the humans. Light comes into darkness and darkness into light, which informs even the unborn. From the mother to the father to the child, some will embrace the curses of heaven. We ra hun clean, we deber ween chum we ammer. I'm calling them that. Are they suffers vatic commands? Crazy planning and artistry. Wishing bitterness. Short is the opportunity. Cursing can be positively or negatively. True being is what we should do with our capability. Threats awaken their obstinacy. We ra hun clean, we deber ween chum we ammer. I'm calling in the event. Writing subprismatic commands, placing the infernal trinity will continue in what they are claiming until the end. Septenary ways are known through the variety of human beings. As wa. All this time, beckoned the terror, even troubled. Rose as the first with the cruelty of the way of these guardians bypassing. For I've perceived it cut down with disaster, since she was so fierce, the beast of the seizing posted itself. For the might it implemented boldly, as disconnected, and of that towering. Often people are only innocent till they are knowing. Souls are afflicted with what they reject by the unloving. Invisible realms teach them their rights and enable their hardening. They're reached to by silenced and battle tested for further strengthening. The infernal elect take part in the knowledge, presence, and ability of the fire beings. The twilight reveals the secrets of those who step from intolerance to liberal knowing. Unrepentant things make it mutual and form the beyond imagination of new things. We ra hanplin weedaber weenchum weammer. A calling in the event where the usurpers of act the balance. Physicality hides the true beauty of plants, animals, and even women. The dark and the feminine has its own light, and that is not of some all-male trinity, but like the moon. Power and love unite in the worldly ways of sorcery, if given permission. Lilith, female night being, with her daughters, Agrat but Muchlet, gathering the lodge of the jagged cave, and Asht, the Nunyim, and the colors of morning. Complete the penalty of the moon card in the presence of Nam, the night, towards a chilly perfection. Small Shemchazah and Azazel, the mighty sentinel of God, speak of this side of femininity as those who are not straight and the mothers of darkening. We ra han pleem, we deber, weenchum, weammer, a calling in the event where the usurpers of act the hands. The fire beings were before and will be after the age of the humans. The infernal flags wave in the air as they raise their acumen. Monstrous were they over the inert beings, and ferocious is their bane. We ra hun pleem, we deber, weenchum, weammer, and calling in the event. Suburbs bad hands, increasing bitterness. Munber Bapel Yahluk Makdam Yeshwun Zaharim 6. The wilderness is filled with bleeding. The traveling destruction that increases the spoiling of the glimmering of Shimshal, son of power. Shimshu is turned with. His Pakal, which tower is the house of power. Shamash, resolute in despair, or whatever you call the fire serpent, whose time is before the early afternoon prayer. Divinity is exposed to the masses by such an unveiler. Spirituality encompasses more than feelings and emotions as an actor. The demon of the sun was exacting and blocked the mysteries as a protector. The archangels were opposed in the freedom of their wills. The sun joined fire with strength, breasts full of character, joined with the renown in the tar-covered oath. The heaven trickles with an enemy's aromatic gift for yoking. Ministering idols are as a divine sun to those who take the sun as divine. Birth, death, maintaining and developing occur in the face of all difficulty and suffering. Not all is there for bending to our wills, but the devil shows ways to what God is forbidding. Holy pacts are broken by those who continue their following. Consciousness, words, and more concrete actions faced further and further separating. We ra hunplim, we deber ween chim, we ammer. I call it in that vote. Truth Yah is not what it used to be. Shemrim, watchers, or custodians, make it their own or let it be. The rebellion in some ways protected humanity. Blood and tears impact the flesh like the wind and rain that over time sweeps away mountains and valleys. Bazal gained a renown that struck fear in those not following their way. We ra hunplim, we deber, weenchum, we ammer. I calling the event the service Vatican commands increasing life. Prepared the way for the dead to rise to mystery. The spiritual death is thus brought forth in this life towards immortality. Al-Yaman, ox of a southerner, powerfully right, brought the strife with the sort of eyes. For these beings of frailty, is the knowledge of magic really forbidden, or does it depend on if it is merely for the temporary, frost and dew upon the sages and what they embody? They may seem as few against those called gods and goddesses, but the 210 raised their flags in the array of materiality. The name of the ancientness of sub-Saharan Africa and its eastern quarter has an atmosphere spoilt in the ceasing of its own power. Discomfort causes questioning, and the sea of the sixth nation works with the consciousness of divine terror, witnessed like idols in the west of God. We kra, hunplim, we deber, weenchum, we ammer, and calling the event where the usurpers the promised land is not of the dead, but those of dream and vision beyond what they read. Blood, sweat, and tears breed a consecration beyond the self-centered lives they fed. Emotionally cold or hot, we can go beyond being a piece of civilization. Moot, mortality, constant die, death, smaller, fewer. Build the dark and dirty mentality of their meditation. We ra, hunplim, we deber, weenchum, we ammer, and calling in the event where these are La Paktan, under the river bank. all, and are living on the edge of the abyss. Hearts, the earth, inferiors, the nations, see their dominion in the faces seen, and those that are missed. The hurts of existence leave their marks in animal, plant, and mineral kingdoms. Curses are carried in the terrestrial, telestial, and celestial. See, John. Beyond all reason, forgotten numbers have and will be replaced in their season, brought towards making a turn with the heaven clouded over, as it filled with holes which are commanded towards destruction to till, being filled with the bowing of Palapakan, wandereth the riverbank, performance of the cliff, Artsal, common oath, and rock. All portion to manipulate. We raw, unclean, we deber, weenchum, weammer. At calling event what we service commands. Our way is of detaching, but not in an identity of losing. Our alleged misbehaving and misbelieving is something of which we should be weighing. The afflicting of creation was part of the order of creating, but when is will be the relieving. The loyal host of heaven are ever the fallen angels counteracting. Dedicated ones. Numbers 26, 5. Surrounded the smells of decay and blood through the astral channeling. It is beyond life and death, good and evil, ignorance and truth, as the animals heed the oracle from their infernal tunneling. What of manifestation is inherent and what is of our choosing? We qara, unclean, we deber, weenchum, weammer, and calling in the event one of these pushing bitterness. Not all places can be named. Germany and the mark of an individual instrument was xenophobic, or his infernal kindred, without signs of fear, guilt, and shame. Are the innocent all defiled by knowledge, or is it what is believed or done about it in the cosmic game? The light beings want the fire beings to relinquish the control that they gained just the same. Abdul, vote by power, applied by an oath, of big God, dressing idols, represented the light beings, and Nagadya, counterpart of God, presence establishing, represented the fire beings who took the risks as they approach the final battle with the unified cry of Hayam, praise of tumultuous company, chaos, waters. Events will decide. Amen. Paved influence, information. In the written form, I have this divided according to the 201 verses in 37 sections. And I'm not saying that Valentin Scavr or Valentin Scavr is, that he or I.S.M agrees with all my interpretations and what I've, expressed herein. And the formulas that I have translated, I'm not, there's not Aramea, there's not Greek. So the lettering may be different than what I think they may be in the original. So therefore the meaning would be whatever, but you can choose what you're going to do with this, right?